said, I'm Laura. I'm comms director at Branded 3. Essentially look after anything PR or social media for the agency. And also, as Alex kind of touched on, I've done the link building training or digital PR training. It's gone through various names for the last 3 years now at Brighton SEO. And one of the main things that people are always interested there is in the actual kind of case studies of campaigns that we have run or we have seen that have successfully generated links. So when Alex kindly asked me to do a session today, I thought that that would be probably one of the most interesting things that I could share, especially as we're kind of coming into 2017, just taking a look at where link building's kind of come from, things that are still working and hopefully will continue to work into 2017 and beyond. So first of all, link building's been around for years, much longer than I've been in the industry. I've been in SEO since about 2012. So link building's been going on way before that. I come from a PR background, so that was my background that I brought to Branded 3, kind of with this idea of, will PR help SEO? You know, is it going to support the clients that we have and generating results for them? So it's been around for years, and if we take a look at this from Google Trends, we can see very high search volume back in 2011, a lot of interest in link building, but then kind of generally decreasing from there. So what happened in 2012? I said that I joined the industry. I'm not the cause of the death of the link building trend, obviously, but this is what happened. Penguin came along, slapped everyone down for all of the really bad techniques that they've been able to get away with. So those kind of pre-2012 techniques aren't ones that I'm familiar with, because as I said, didn't work in the industry then. But that's kind of what's happened. And then what we've seen, this is probably a graph that's familiar to a lot of people, and it's shared around quite a lot now, but we see that this link building trend kind of dies down in 2012. And this trend that had been growing for content marketing really takes off from there, which is obviously an interesting chart for us to look at. November 2012 is the point at which it crosses and content marketing overtakes link building, and we can see that content marketing has just kind of gone up from there. One of the questions that I get asked quite a lot, or I see kind of bandied around a lot, is this one. So we see that chart, we see that content marketing is on the rise. You see people like me, PRs, coming into the industry talking about how we build links. And people say, okay, so has content marketing, digital PR, have they replaced link building? And I kind of say, well, yes, PR and content marketing can equal links. So yes, it can result in link building. But actually digital PR and content marketing is about so much more than just link building. So it's about brand awareness, it's about brand love and brand loyalty, it's about influencing people and changing their opinions, and ultimately it can be about sales as well. So it's important not to just look at digital PR and content marketing as a link acquisition or link building technique, because it's much more than that in itself. But I think it's also not to think of it just as the only link building or link acquisition technique. Now I'm going to talk about today kind of the techniques we use within my team, within the PR team, to build links. But I don't think that these are the only ways to build links. And there's some fantastic articles out there that still show really relevant ways to build links that are beyond the kind of realms of PR and content marketing. Things like working with partners. If you're if you have kind of physical stores in shopping centres, airports, places like that, it's still very valid to get links from them. It's not a PR activity to contact them to get the links, but it is a genuine and a relevant way to get links. So I don't think that PR and content marketing have necessarily replaced link building, but I do think they're a good source of link building, and especially because they bring about all these other benefits that I've just touched on. So they're definitely worth investing in terms of generating links. But so on to link acquisition is hard. So I've talked about the fact that there were these tactics pre-2012, and I wasn't there, I don't know, but to me it sounds a lot easier. It sounds a lot easier than what we're doing today. You could spend some money and get someone to put a link up for you, and you didn't get penalised for it really until 2012. You got away with it. You could spin some content through a content spinning website, get that up there, get some links. It was a lot easier, and talking to people that were doing that, it was a lot easier. But it's harder now in 2016. There's various reasons for that. There's bloggers being hit by manual penalty warnings from Google. So bloggers are scared to work with you. There's publishers being squeezed from every angle in terms of how they generate revenue. So they're reluctant to add links into articles because of Google, but also because of if they added different types of links and advertising instead, they can make money from them. So there's all different reasons that mean that link acquisition is quite hard in 2017. And it's probably not going to get any easier in 2017, which all sounds terribly negative, I know, but there are things that do work. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I don't think link building is dying and that we're not going to be doing it into next year and the years after. But there's certain tactics that work, and that's what I thought I'd go through today. So what does work? First of all, newsjacking. Newsjacking is a technique that we use for a lot of our clients at Branded 3. A lot of financial ones in particular, we find it works really well for. And there's kind of an easy process to follow for this. So first of all, newsjacking is essentially, for anyone that's not familiar with the term, it's taking a look at what's on the news agenda or what you can predict will be on the news agenda, and then finding a way to insert someone from your client or your company if you're internal, trying to find a way to put them in that story. So for example, in the autumn statement that we had a few weeks ago, there's all different stories that come out of that in terms of what that means for the UK. There's all different reasons that a client can talk about it. You can talk about if your customers are pensioners, you can talk about how what they've said is going to affect pensioners. There's lots of relevant ways to put yourself in that conversation. So this is the process that we go through. So the first step in this really is identifying an internal expert that's credible and can talk about the issues that you identify, and then creating an author page for that person. There needs to be a reason that a journalist would want to link to you, and having an author page that explains all about why this person is an expert, you know, how long they've been working at the company, what they contribute to the industry, other snippets of information from them that aren't just links. That works really well as an author page. The next step then is to build a calendar of potential events, and I put that in inverted commas because I'm not talking about, you know, specific events that you would go to as an offline event. I'm talking about all different things that can happen throughout the year, announcements that you know are made, for example, when people do their annual general meetings. Those kind of things are events that you can target with comment. Next step is to proactively contact journalists ahead of the event with either predictions ahead of events. So, you know, we think that this is what the impact is going to be of the autumn statement. Would you be interested in a comment on that? Or offering live commentary. So we know that you'll be covering the autumn statement. Would you be interested in some commentary live throughout it to add context? Because a lot of journalists have to cover live blogs of these events, and it's hard for them to fill them. If they're watching, you know, someone reading out a statement, they've still got to be putting content in there. So if you can offer them expert insight, they love that and they're more likely to cover it. So that's kind of the proactive approach to newsjacking. And then there's the reactive, so monitoring the stuff that you can target from a reactive perspective. One of the examples I normally use for this, which is a bit of an older one now, but it's still quite a relevant one, is when Alex Ferguson announced that he was stepping down from managing Man United. That was something that we couldn't have planned for. It couldn't have been in a calendar. But what it meant was if he stepped down, it had a massive impact on Manchester United's share price. And we have experts, financial experts at our clients that can comment on what we expect the impact on share price will be for Alex Ferguson stepping down as the Manchester United manager. So it's that kind of stuff as well. It's being ahead, planning ahead, building yourself a calendar, but then also constantly monitoring the news agenda and spotting those opportunities that come up, those little gems that you know you can target from your clients. We built something, I promise this is the only plug for ourselves, but we built this PR calendar because we create these internally for all different kind of categories of things that we might want to newsjack or build campaigns around. So if you have a look on our site, you'll be able to find this. If you want to, you can then download the events into yours if you want kind of a starting point for ideas of things that you can newsjack. This is the one for January 2017. So an idea here, you know, you've got Blue Monday on the 16th of January. That's kind of the one where apparently everyone's depressed, all the bills are coming through from Christmas, it's ages till payday. There's all sorts of things that you can do to target that with a campaign or a story. And this is an example of how it works. So this is for SpreadX, this is the author page that I was talking about that we've created for their internal expert. And then these are just examples of the kind of websites and publications that then take our commentary on various events that are happening. You can see that they're quite varied in terms of what we comment on. It's everything from your usual kind of national papers here in the UK, like The Guardian, The Express, to very niche specific ones like Beer Today, food manufacturer, because there's all different niches that we can target, opening up plenty of opportunities for us to generate links. So that's newsjacking. Thought leadership is kind of similar to newsjacking, but it's taking it a step further. So with newsjacking, all we're really offering is a short comment from our client in terms of, we think this is the reaction to that event, and it's just a short comment, maybe a paragraph or two on what we think. Thought leadership's taken that a bit further, and it's doing something a bit more in depth, but still all around this building expertise. So for this, it's all about identifying the areas that it makes sense for you to talk about. And I've highlighted makes sense there because there's probably a whole realm of things that you could write about. But if you're selling an expert, it has to make sense that they would talk about that subject. There's no point trying to put someone forward for something if actually it makes no sense that they'd be talking about that particular topic. So think about what makes sense and make sure you stick to that and have a credible reason for putting them forward. An example of where we did this for one of our clients, so Power Now are a conference calling company, and so they heavily promote flexible working, both in terms of people being able to work different hours, as well as people being able to work remotely from different locations. And one of the things that we found, so I'm based in London, but before I actually moved here, I used to visit quite a lot. And especially before we had our office here, I'd have meetings with clients, but then I'd need to work. And because we didn't have an office, it was trying to find somewhere to go. And it's an issue that a lot of people face when they're going to different cities, London being a key one, knowing where they can actually get work done when they're not in the office. So it makes sense for them to talk about, where are these locations that you can work from? So we came up with this idea called the Smarter Working Guide to London. Essentially what this is a PDF guide that you can download from their website, and it takes you through East, West, Central, North, South London, with various different types of locations that you might want to work from in those areas. And it gives you a bit of a profile about where that place is and why it's good to work from there. The way we collated this was by getting people to send them in on Twitter. So we did a big call out on Twitter saying, send us the places that you like working from in London, and we're going to compile the best into a book. So we got users to send us their recommendations. We also surveyed their customers who are heavily London based to find out where they like working for in London. And we visited some of the places and got a feel for them ourselves so that we could write the profiles about them. And then we created this piece that we could then, again, promote. So in terms of them, they're targeting business customers, business sites. So these are the places that it makes sense for us to target, places like HR Grapevine, Engage for Success. They're the places that we want to get links from. It's all about relevancy and where it makes sense for us to be talking about this stuff. That doesn't necessarily make sense for us to talk about something that's the Smarter Working Guide to London. It doesn't make sense for us to be trying to get that into necessarily even national publications, because so many of their readers won't work in an industry where they get to work remotely. What we want to do is target the places that are relevant to have those conversations. So that's an example of how you can kind of use thought leadership to get links for clients. And that works especially well for, as with Power Now, for the more B2B clients where you don't do, it's harder to do kind of a sexy or singing or dancing campaign. What you need to do is show why you're the expert and why people should come to you. The next tactic I've got is visualizing our own data. So data is something in general that just works wonders. I mean, data journalism's been on the rise for years, and there's people with that as their specific job title now. It works really well. If you think about the headlines that you read, how many of them feature data? X% of Brits think this, X% of the US think this about the election. It's everywhere that you read. So it makes sense to use data in our own campaigns. And there's different ways of using data that you can go down, different routes. This was one of the first data visualizations that I really liked when I first got into the industry. Some of you may be familiar with it. It was by Love Honey, and they did the UK sex map, which is a bit risque, but basically they took their own data of where was buying different products from their website and just plotted it across the UK. And it did absolutely phenomenally in terms of links, in terms of coverage. It was absolutely amazing. Sadly, they've taken it down now, so if you visit the link, you won't be able to find it. This is the only screenshot that I could find. But that was something that I remember when I came into the industry thinking, wow, that's awesome. That works really well. Just taking that data that they've already got, they've not created that data especially for this. They've just looked at what they've got internally and how actually that is an interesting story to the public, because we're all a bit nosy. We all want to know what's going on. And we've kind of taken that and replicated it with some of our own clients. So an example here is Transform, who are a cosmetic surgery client. They wanted to do something to show that they're the experts in the cosmetic surgery industry, but they wanted to do something that didn't just play on the usual things that cosmetic surgery companies often do, which is the celebrity angle. They wanted to do something that showed real people, and it wasn't just kind of these aspirational bodies that you'd be aiming for. It was, you know, the real things that people are concerned about and might want to change about themselves. So what we did for this is we took the last 4 years of their inquiry data, so not sales data, it's not commercially sensitive, we're not giving anything away. This is just people that have inquired about different procedures, and we essentially mapped it across the UK. So you can go on the drop down, select the place that you are. So I've gone for East London, that's where I'm based. You can select the different procedures across the right-hand side and see how many inquiries there's been for that exact procedure in your area. What you can also do is look at case studies for those people. So you can look at real patient stories to find out what those people thought that had that procedure in that place. And what that meant was that all these big national tabloid places that their exact target audience want to link to that, they want to share it, they want to embed it. Because people are interested in that kind of thing. We created headlines like Blackpool's the boob job capital of the UK. We also worked out where was top for Botox and all the other procedures. We arranged an exclusive with The Sun on Sunday to launch it. And then we also went out to different regional publications to show, okay, in Manchester, this is the percentages for you. So it means that regional newspapers are interested in that kind of data as well. And when you do something like a map, that regional angle is really important because there's a whole wealth of links and coverage for you to go after there. We also did it for another client. So this is PayPlan. They're a debt management company. And what we did with them was we took their debt assessments and mapped them across the UK, because their whole messaging at the time there was a big worry about people that are in debt and seeking debt advice often feel like they're alone, and they're like, oh, I'm the only one that's got myself into this situation and I'm never going to get out of it, and they're really worried about it. So what we wanted to do is show that actually, no, you're not. So if you look at this one, I'm looking at London here, in the specific postcode area. There's over 1,000 people that have had debt advice in that area. So I'm not alone at all if I'm looking at that. And I can also see the average debt value per person, how many IVAs, all different things. So I can see actually I'm not alone. I should pick up the phone. I should get advice, because look at all these other people that have done that. So it's about helping people to understand that they're part of something. So it feeds into being nosy, but it also feeds into that kind of human emotion of wanting that kind of verification that you're not alone. And again, these are all the places that covered it. So the nationals went with the headlines for where the capital of the UK was, the regionals went with other things, Credit Today, financial sites went with different angles. You can cut the data up in different ways to appeal to different people and enable you to get lots of different links, lots of different pieces of coverage, which are really great. And the reason that it works is that people like exploring stats and facts about their area, and they like to feel like they're not alone. They want to know that I'm not the only one that wants a boob job, or I'm not the only one that's in debt. That's what people like to know before they're going to take the next step, importantly, in terms of converting or going down the inquiry route for either of those kind of products. So I've kind of gone through a couple of maps there, so that brings me nicely onto maps. But what I've shown you there is maps that are all about data, but maps don't have to be about this. So this is another example that we did, which is a National Treasures campaign. So the way this works, this is a map that's also a quiz, and I'll come on to quizzes in a bit. But essentially what this does is it tests your knowledge of where different places are in the UK. There's no data in here. It's not saying X% of people can pick this at this stage. All it's saying is, can you find Warwick Castle? And you have to click on the pin, and if you get it correct, it'll tell you correct, and you'll get a score at the end of it. But there's no data involved in terms of that. But what we can do is we can collect the data in the back end to look at how many people can get it right if we want to. So correct answer, that was such a fluke that I got that right at the time. I'm not going to tell you how many attempts that took usually for me to get it. My geography is not my strong point. But that works really well. People like quizzes. So these is all the coverage again, all these national places wanting to share the fact that here's this quiz that tests whether you know British landmarks. So just in itself, being a map that tests your knowledge without any data behind it does work. So people like testing their knowledge and they like sharing if they get things right. So this is another important thing. People are really egotistical at the heart of things. So if I get 10 out of 10 on that quiz, I'm going to share that I got 10 out of 10 because most of my friends know that my geography is rubbish. If I actually get 10 out of 10 on a quiz, that's pretty good for me. It's the same psychology as all the BuzzFeed ones. So, you know, which Disney princess are you? Yeah, I'll share that I'm Belle because Belle's my favourite princess and that's the one that I got. And the same with all the Harry Potter ones, sharing what house. People like sharing when they get things right or when they get the result that they wanted. And that's why things like that work. So moving on to quizzes in general. There's all different ones that we can do. So this is an example that we did for Halfords called How Roadworthy Are You? So what we wanted to do was put to bed that age-old question that people say in terms of could you still pass your driving test today? So you've been driving 5 years now, you think you're an amazing driver, but could you actually pass your driving test? Because a lot of people say when you learn to drive, all you actually do is learn to pass your test. You don't actually learn to drive until after you've passed your test. So what we wanted to do is see how many people actually remember the things that go into their driving test after they've been driving for a while. So we created this quiz that asked you where you were in the country, how old you were, how long you've been driving, and then it asked you questions like this. So when on the motorway, which lane should you use? And you, again, have to select the correct answer. But again, this is really interesting for people. So a lot of people want to talk about this. And want to embed it, want to talk about how many people fail. So again, this is kind of a double-edged campaign. So we've got the first part, which is just the fact that we've created this quiz, it's interesting, people want to play it, but then we've also got the data that we've captured behind it. So 61% of UK motorists aren't actually roadworthy from taking our quiz. That's the kind of data and creative asset that works really well. This is another example, we did it for Labrets quite a while ago now. This was tapping into people's football passions. So looking at, for your team, how well do you actually know them? Because you always have those people that talk about glory supporters for different types of teams. It doesn't just happen in football, all different sports, or I should say soccer, since we've got US people on this as well. This is kind of testing, well, do you actually know your club or are you just a glory supporter? Do you support them superficially? So you answer 10 questions, you get a score, but then what we do is what you can see here, we rank you in a league table. So actually, at the time I took this screenshot, Southampton fans know the most about their team, tied with quite a lot of other teams, but some of the bigger teams actually feature further down. So a lot of their fans don't really know that much about them. The data from the quiz is what forms the story. So as you saw from the Halfords example, the fact that over half of people would fail their test is interesting. From this, the fact that at the time that we were going out with the PR story, it was Crystal Palace that were top. They were actually bottom of the real Premier League. So that was kind of a funny story in terms of top in terms of fan knowledge, but bottom in terms of player performance. And then again, we've also got that regional angle that we can go after. So in that table, we've got Everton and Liverpool United, which are two rival football teams. We can show the difference between how well each of them know their team, and the same for other rivalries. So we've got the London rivalries we can go after. We've got the Manchester rivalries we can go after. These kind of things open up so many different opportunities in terms of websites that we can target with the data and with the asset that we've created. And it's the ego that makes people share their scores, as I've said. It was the same when it's whether you're roadworthy, whether you know the UK, whether you're a Disney princess. It's the same as whether you know your football team. If you get 10 out of 10 for your football team, you're going to want to share that. You're going to want to challenge your mates. Could you get it for your team? It's ego that makes us do it. So moving on to surveys, so sticking on the data theme, a lot of the time what we hear from people is, oh, well, that all sounds great, but, you know, we don't have any data, or we don't necessarily have enough budget to create a quiz, or we can't do a quiz for whatever reason. You don't have to have your own data. If you don't have your own data, or you can't share your own data for whatever reason, you can buy it. There's plenty of survey companies out there that you can work with. Google has Google consumer surveys, really cheap and easy to set up. Over here, we use a company called OnePoll, but there's plenty all over different countries. You'll be able to find the survey company. And the good thing about that is you get the exact data that you want. So you supply the questions, you say, this is what I think we need to make this story work, and that's exactly what you get back. So this is another example that we did looking at, we were talking about there's more to the UK than London. So a lot of people see the UK and just see it as London, but there's actually a lot more. So we surveyed people on what they knew about the UK outside of London, and then created this map where you can explore different things and it'll tell you stuff about the UK. And this opens up, again, lots of different avenues for us. So we've got all the stats from the survey that people will talk about. We've got the actual fact that you can explore the map and see different places that you can eat, for example. And that really works really well because it captures people's attention. They want to explore that stuff. And we've got data that we can target different niches. So we can go to music people with our One Direction question, and TV sites. We can go to the Indie Star wanted to talk about the food angle of things that you can eat across the UK. Again, through that, we've thought about the different niches of websites that we can go to and then carved up our seeding list accordingly. The important thing to note on this, though, is that you still need to create something worth linking to. So stats from a survey will get you coverage easily. As I said, you're constantly seeing these headlines of X% of people think this, but it's the creative that will get you the link. So it's the fact that we've created something that people can go and explore that means that we'll get links, as opposed to just having some stats that people can write about without actually covering the asset that we've created. So user-generated content, another thing that works really well for us. So you don't have to create everything yourself. It can take a lot of effort commissioning a survey or analysing all your data. You don't have to do that. You can get your fans or your bloggers to help as well. User-generated content's been another buzzword for quite a while. So an example of where we've done this for cotton traders, we did an advent calendar for them. So quite a simple concept. It's one that everyone recognises. And essentially what we did is we worked with various bloggers to give their kind of Christmas themed, such as this one. There was crafts, there was how to decorate your Christmas tree, there was things to do with the kids during Christmas, all different kind of Christmassy activities that are included in this calendar. And because we've featured them in here, they want to share it, they want to link to it. So human ego means that if we're featured in something, we're more likely to share it or link to it. It's the exact same reason that we share the fact that we're involved in this link today. We want people to see us. We want people to come and watch the webinar. Everyone, if you're quoted in somewhere, you're probably going to share it and link to it if you get the chance. And then finally, events. So don't forget about offline. A lot of the time when we talk about, because we're talking about digital PR or content marketing, people just kind of go online, and all the assets I've shown you up until now and have been very focused on that. But offline creates a better experience for people, and it gives them a bit more to talk about. So if we give them some data and a nice asset, yes, they'll link to it for us, and that's lovely, and they might share their article. But if we create an event, we create a lot more opportunity for them to talk about us. And coming back to the other things that I said digital PR and content marketing can do in terms of brand loyalty, brand love, this helps a lot more with that, because people feel more of a connection to the brand or the products that you're looking at. So an example here is we've done for Labrooks before, we've done Wimbledon parties and all different kinds of things. We send them a nice invite initially, we give them a nice dress code, so they tweet about what dress they're going to wear, they're Instagramming when they're getting ready. We have nice shareable food and drinks that they want to Instagram while they're there. And then ultimately afterwards, they want to write about it all together for their readers. So it gives us a lot more opportunities for someone to write about us than just the asset in itself. And you've got a good idea of kind of how many links or pieces of coverage you're likely to get, because you've got a certain number of people coming to an event. So thank you very much. That was my tactics that are working for us in 2016 and that we'll be continuing to use in 2017.